Indie Author Lab from the Alliance of Independent Authors is a brand new in-person event for indie authors during London Book Fair Week. Taking place in London on March 11, 2026, it's a full day of mentoring, workshops, and community connection. Created for indie authors by indie authors. Learn more and secure your tickets at selfpublishingadvice.org/indieauthorlab. Welcome to Self-Publishing with ALLi from the Alliance of Independent Authors. This week, it's our member Q&A, where ALLi members have their most pressing publishing questions analyzed and answered. And here are your hosts, Ronn and Sacha Black.
Hello, and welcome to Self-Publishing with ALLi. This is the member Q&A podcast, the podcast where we answer all of your burning self-publishing questions. You got the questions, we got the answers, we hope. My name is Ronn, and I'm here with Sacha Black. What's up, Sacha?
Hello. How are you?
Hey, I am fantastic. I am gearing up. I can't talk about when. We try not to. Sometimes we record early, so we can't always talk about when we're recording.
Yeah.
So you can't tell what time it is or what day it is in my background for those who are watching. But I am preparing to be on the road for like 2 weeks. So going to a writing conference, and then I've got a trip planned after that. And yeah, things are a little chaotic for me. I'm trying to pack and finish presentations and try to leave my house somewhat clean before I leave. But I don't know. Something's going to have to get sacrificed.
Yeah. It's usually the cleaning. Let's be real.
Yeah, that's 100% the problem is the cleaning. How are you doing?
I'm okay. So in terms of what I've been up to, we fulfilled the big Kickstarter. We've just got a few stragglers left on that. And then I went straight into moving warehouse. So I now have 2 units instead of 1.
All right.
And we had to move the existing unit into a new unit, and then we sort of expanded into a second unit. So they're like next door to each other, which is quite cool. And there's like an internal corridor. So like if it's raining, we can just bring books in like round the corridors and stuff, which is cool. So that has been, I would say, a very long 6 weeks of manual labor. And as a writer who's usually got her backside on a chair at a desk, like, I'm quite tired. So I get to take a couple of days off, and then I am going to try and be at the desk writing for a really long time. Like, the only thing I want to do the rest of this year is write words. So I'm really hoping. I mean, there is a small issue of like moving house as well, but apart from that, it should just be words from here on out.
Just microscopic issues of moving house, you know.
At least I did them all at the same time, right? I was like, well, it's going to be crazy. Let's make it really crazy. And
let's just make, when it rains, it pours.
Exactly.
And then it's sunny.
Yeah.
So it's all good. But I hope that you'll be able to keep the colored bookshelf. For those who aren't watching, Sacha has the most amazing color-coded bookshelf in her background. And hopefully you get to keep that in some way.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We were talking about that last night, like, where is the bookcase going to go? Because there isn't really, because I'm going to be building an office in the garden, there's not going to be really enough space in that office to have, walls and walls of books, and there's not really anywhere obvious to put it in the house. So we were talking about that last night. How do we still keep all the books? So I might have all my special editions under the stairs, like as a little reading nook, and like build a bookcase under there. And then maybe the rest will go in the office. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. Well, we're eagerly curious to see, but I'm sure your space is still going to look amazing. So
fingers crossed.
All good. Yeah. All right. So we got the first question, and that's going to come from Julia. And the question from Julia is, I'm struggling to get my novel in independent bookshops. My local bookshop was very unfriendly and said they don't stock Gardner's books listed as firm purchase. I asked Gardner why, and they said that because I show a 45% discount and the book is marked as destroy, it is listed as firm. And they have kindly replied and explained that my book is listed as firm. Okay, so we get the book is listed as firm. Is there a way around this?
I mean, with the independent, so there's the technical sides of like, how do you get it not listed as firm? And I would just contact Gardners and ask them the question, okay, well, if these are the settings that are making it firm, then what are the settings I need to have on there that mark it as not firm? And it's probably something about being able to return the book, but then that's a risk that you carry as the author, that you will end up seeing docked books off of your income if bookstores then return your books. So that is a risk that you would then carry. If it were me, one of the things that we're looking at doing is creating a list of sort of queer friendly independent bookstores and reaching out to them directly. And I mean, obviously, like, not everybody can do this because I am doing print runs, so I get the books at low prices, and we're going to offer the bookstores the books at the same price that Trad do it, except when we send them, they'll all be signed and they'll all have artwork and they'll all have bookmarks and things. So we're kind of doing that as our own little project. But in terms of working with bookstores, it is often about developing that relationship and what can you do? What can you offer them? Like, can you offer sending them book plates? Like, we ship book plates all over the world. Whenever I'm tagged in a bookstore that stocks my books, we do something to say thank you. So we'll send book plates, bookmarks, like anything like that we can to support the bookstores. Getting into bookstores is extremely difficult unless you have high volumes of sales and you're having readers go into their local independent bookstores to ask them to order your books. You are unlikely to get that kind of deep penetration that you're after. And it is sort of an exercise in, what's that word? Futility, because it is, they have to make money. So they have to be assured that the books that they're ordering in are going to sell. So it's almost, I would say, until you're selling a huge volume, and we don't know what your sales are because obviously we've not got that information, it's almost not worth spending a huge amount of time trying to fix this. I would definitely go back to Gardners and just ask what the settings are that will enable it to be labeled as something other than firm. And then if it is the fact that you have to enable returns, I would just make sure that you've read the terms and conditions and you understand what the consequences are of returns. And then go back to the bookstore and just say, like, the status has changed.
Yeah. And I think I agree with everything you said, Sacha. And I think it goes back to the very beginning of the question for me, which is, if the bookstore doesn't want to carry your book, then they're not going to carry your book.
Yeah.
Right. And there are just some bookstores out there that aren't going to carry your book, even if you do everything right. Right. So even if you do everything that Sacha said, you make sure that the book isn't firm, you make sure your discounts are correct, you make sure you make it worth their while, all stuff that is important. There are just some people that just aren't going to want to work with you. Just like there are some kids on the playground that just don't want to be your friend, and I think you just have to figure out where the friendly folks are and where the not so friendly folks are. And when someone shuts the door in your face, don't take it too personal. But I do think that, there is a limited pool out there, and right, wrong, or indifferent, there's nothing we can do about it. And we just have to work with the folks that want to work with us and not lose too much sleep over the rest. Yeah. And we'd be remiss if we did not mention that we do have a guidebook on this topic. So it is called Your Book in Bookstores, and that is by Debbie Young. And so if you're an ALLi member, you can find that by logging into your dashboard at allianceindependentauthors.org, and then go to publications. And then under publications, it's under complete guides. And it is Your Book in Bookstores, ALLi's Guide to Print Book Distribution for Authors. And you can download that for free as part of your membership. And if you don't happen to be an ALLi member, don't worry. You can also purchase the book in our bookstore as well as wherever books are sold. Anything else you want to say on Bookstore, Sacha? Any other insider tips?
I don't think so. I think it's just hard. It's a hard sell.
How do bookstores, how do they reply? Like when you send them something, like if you get tagged, or how do they usually take that? Does that increase your sales if you send them bookmarks and book plates and things like that?
Yeah. So when So they're usually delighted, and then they're like, oh, we're not sure if we can afford the shipping. And I'm like, don't worry about the shipping. I got it. Like, I'm offering this as a gift. And that usually makes them very excited. They're usually thrilled because they don't necessarily get that level of engagement from authors. I have received very positive kind of reactions from every bookstore that I've done it to. What I will say is that bookstores are extremely busy. They find it very difficult to follow up with things. So I tend to put the ball in their court. And as soon as I'm tagged, I'm like, oh, I've seen that you're stocking my books. Would you like some book prints, some art plate, or, art cards or whatever? And they're like, oh, yes, that's amazing. And I'm like, great, please email, my customer service manager and tell us how much you stock of each book, and we'll get a package in the post to you. And, they have always come back and said, thanks so much. And I do seem to be being tagged in an increasing number of these things, but it's difficult because they don't necessarily come back and say, oh, can we have some more? So I don't really know, but it does seem to create goodwill, I think. And over time, I have even done a campaign online where I've asked if bookstores are stocking me, or if you are a reader and you see my book, please tell me so that we can contact them. And it's very slow, grueling progress, but it's because of the situation that I'm in and the capacity that I have to mail things. It's something that we are doing, and at an increasing rate, because we have that ability. I would not have done this 3 years ago.
I think that's brilliant. I mean, when they tag you, you send them something, right? And it's like, what that reminds me of? That reminds me of like when you're sitting at the doctor's office, and then the pharmaceutical rep comes in with all the samples and stuff, and they have, and they meet with the doctor and they give them stuff. I mean, that's what that kind of reminds me of. I mean, whatever your feelings are on pharmaceuticals, I still think that's a good business strategy.
Yeah.
Like you're nurturing the relationship. And I would probably be willing to bet 99% of authors and publishers don't even do something like that.
No, exactly.
So that just makes you stand out.
Well, right. And the thing is that even more so in independent bookstores, they are hand sellers. If you have created goodwill and you have supported that store, if somebody goes in asking for your genre of book, they're much more likely to sell your book than they are anybody else's. So, it is strategic, but also it's a way of me being able to support independent bookstores, we are independent authors. I like supporting independent bookstores. So for me, it's like, okay, well, I have the privilege and the ability and the capacity to do this, to give back now. So that's what I try and do. And hey, it also happens to benefit, I'm assuming it benefits our business. Like, it's a very hard thing to measure and track, but I feel like it does, so.
Yeah. And what I also like about it is that you're waiting for them to tag you. You're not that author, because I think a lot of bookstores have this experience, and I completely understand why they get put off by this, but they get authors that come in and they bring their books, and usually it's an ugly baby book cover, and they're trying to get them to sell the book, and booksellers hate that.
Yeah.
But if they're stocking your books and then you're reaching out, that's I love that idea. That works. It feels like that would work really well.
Yeah, and the other, so it's the other way we do it is if readers tag me saying they've seen my book, and then so I have now got one of my team starting to do research so that we're going to be slightly more active. We're starting kind of with the LGBT bookstore, like specific bookstores. I've gone into a few, like if ever we're in a city and I see a bookstore, we go in, but yeah, this stuff is very slow. It is never going to generate, tens of thousands of book sales. But who doesn't want to see their book on a shelf in a bookstore?
Well, it's like they say, how do you build a career? You build it one reader at a time, right?
Exactly.
One bookstore at a time. So, all right. Next question is from Victoria. And Victoria says that she is starting a podcast this year based on 2 of her nonfiction books. both about the work of straight women in the AIDS community. I'm doing this to expand my readers who are now primarily over the age of 45. It will be a lot of work, but content is no problem. I have dozens of audio interviews to draw from, as well as crates and crates of research. I can also include several dozen women who did not make it into either book. My question is this. I know marketing is going to be my number one focus before and after the podcast premieres, and it will take a while to build an audience. But there's only one other show that I know of that's out there. So what are some other ways that I can monetize this podcast? Should I be looking for sponsors and advertisers, or just encourage people to buy the books?
So that's a really good question. I think podcasts are quite easy to monetize once they're established. It's quite difficult to, get sponsors before you're getting at least 800 to 1,000 downloads per episode, I would say. And that's going to take a little going to get to. So I would say on the sponsorship front, yes, definitely. But just see what your download stats are like before you start asking for sponsors. You can do things like communities, or a Patreon, where they can get bonus content, behind the scenes information, 15 minutes extra of audio or whatever for like a couple of dollars. So I would look at Patreon as well. And then of course you obviously want to direct them to the books. Is there a course that you could iterate the books into to potentially monetize that way as well? I think podcasts generally are forms of marketing more than they are necessarily huge revenue streams until you are very, very established. And once then you have like a huge download number, it is then quite easy to monetize and get sponsors and things. But yeah, that initial is quite hard to, you need like, if you're going weekly, you need at least 6 months to a year of content before sponsors will look at you, because so many podcasters stop after 7 episodes. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it was what was it? I think it was Joanna Penn that she said this on her podcast all the time, that she wouldn't be a guest on shows until they had at least 10 episodes.
I think it's even more than that now.
You're exactly right. Yeah, it might be more than that due to just because of the way things are currently, people stopping and that sort of thing. So I think that's all viable. I do think that there are potentially smaller companies that might be willing to sponsor you earlier if you could build a relationship with them. But, like startups or places that are, trying to get their foot in the door. But yeah, generally speaking, you've got to have a track record of consistency, meaning you put out content on a regular basis, and then also that you can bring home the bacon. You got to be able to get listeners. And if you can do those two things, then I think you can get sponsors. And, I also think something to also think about is, it sounds like you've got dozens of guests in the bank, Victoria, but, you're going to need a lot more than a few dozen guests. And so you also have to think about the content. So in terms of what does the content look like for the next year, but also beyond that. And so what I often find is that people, they start podcasts and then they run out of ideas. They think they have all these ideas, but then they just run out of ideas. And if you're doing guests, that becomes even harder to find guests. So you almost have to think about expanding your content focus. So like if you're talking about just HIV and AIDS, you might run out of people to talk about at some point. So can you expand a little bit more? Are there topics that are adjacent to this that you could also hit? And are there ways that you could come at this sideways? Just don't underestimate the content, because it will run out sooner than you think. That's my only other advice. Okay. Next question is from Ephraim. And Ephraim asks, how do I know if it's time to stop trying to get published through my agent and just jump into self-publishing? So it looks like Ephraim has an agent, and the agent is trying to publish his or her second book, and neither of them has had any luck with publishers.
I don't So I almost want to challenge the phrasing of it. I feel like the phrasing is a little bit like self-publishing is second best, as a default, like I didn't get trad pub, so I'm going to self-publish now. Whereas I come at it from the other angle. I think self-publishing first because I make more money. And then I'm like, oh no, maybe this project could be trad published or whatever. So I would actually look at the book and then look at the market and look at the genre, right? What of the genre that you're in, what ratio or what proportion of the books in the top sellers are traditionally published versus indie published? Are you trying to pitch a book to trad pub in a market that is dominated by self-publishers? If so, that might be why you are not having success. The other thing is that, like, trad pub is, I mean, look, it's called Penguin Random House for a reason. Nobody in publishing knows what's going to be the next big hit. So one day they'll say no. I literally have a friend who sent their agent a manuscript. They hated it. 6 months later, they sent them the same manuscript and they loved it. Like, if that isn't a perfect example of what trad is like, I don't know what is. I would say that self-publishing your manuscript needs to be a choice and a business model that you are choosing to engage in with a strategy, a purpose, and a reason. Like, if you're going to self-publish, what is your marketing strategy? Have you already baked the marketing into your book? Do you know how you're going to sell it? Do you know how you're going to reach readers? Do you know, like, is it nonfiction? Do you know what problem it solves? Is it romance? Do you know, like, what the tropes are? Is it urban fantasy? Has it got the snark and the humor and the setting, like, well grounded in there? Like, I don't know. We don't have enough information to know. And I feel like I'm just going off on a rant and I've completely forgotten what the question was, but, like, self-publishing
indie
is
versus
not
traditional.
Yeah, how do you know when to go indie? For me, it's a choice. Like, what is the market? What is the market tolerating? Like, I look at the market and by market I mean the genre and the books that are best selling in that genre, and I look at the ratio of indie published books versus trad published. It's quite easy to tell that because obviously the big publishers tend to be well-known names. So look up the big 4 or 5, how many it is now, and sort of medium publishing houses. Look at their names, then go to the books in that top 100 and have a look at who they're published by. And if you see the names and they're like Hachette or Pan Macmillan or Tor, you'll know that it's trad pubbed. And if it's some kind of obscure name, LLC, or, you know, something publishing or whatever, it's probably an indie author. So then you'll be able to tell which is which. And so, yeah, like, and I mean, the other thing to say is, like my friend, you could just withdraw the manuscript for 6 months and then query it again in 6 months when the market turns or the market changes. You know, the market is always shifting. What publishers want changes day by day, you know. So it might just not be the time for that manuscript. It might be that manuscript is written in a way that is much more akin to trad pub, and therefore just pull it, hold it, and wait. Or if you're like me and impatient and you know how to market your books, then just self-publish it. But yeah, don't feel like, the book didn't get picked up, therefore I'm going to self-publish it, because that really irks me.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to choose. Do you want people to choose you, or are you going to choose yourself? Right. And I think what it sounds to me like what you're saying is you choose yourself. And if other people see you and decide to choose you, that's cool. But at the end of the day, you're going to blaze your own path.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have got a book that I have written that is on my hard drive that feels more like a trad pub book. And so I haven't self-published that book, but I also don't feel like it's the right time for that book. And I still need to do some editing. And so I've not queried it and I've not self-published it, but it's sat there. And yeah, like 99% of the books that I write, I choose myself, and I feel like self-publishing is the right way. But there are some books that just feel like they're more trad pub. In terms of style, design, story arcs, the types of character, you know, you can be a lot more risque in indie publishing than you submit to, like, maybe I shouldn't say this, I'll probably get myself in trouble, but like, I often feel like trad pub books are a bit more vanilla in terms of like their flavorings. So, and that book in particular is a little lighter, a little bit softer, and a little bit more acceptable than some of my other ones. So, yeah.
No, I think you're not wrong. I think it probably depends on the genre, right? Because I have heard some crazy stuff. I've heard some crazy stuff in trad pub books, but yeah, generally speaking, the crazy stuff is usually on the indie side.
Yeah, or it's indie to start with, and then it's picked up.
Yeah, exactly. They're not the first to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. I think that both are a path. I mean, both are choices. I think both are available to you if you want to do it. But I think you're going to make a lot more money on the indie side because it's going to force you to understand the market, right?
Well,
and
so
you're going to have to understand.
Let me just challenge that, because I agree with you, but that's because of who we are as people. I don't think everybody is going to make more money indie, because not everybody is going to market the way that we market.
True.
Yeah.
True.
So I think if you are
willing to work at it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. If you're willing to work at it and you're willing to learn, then you have infinite possibilities.
Yeah.
Indie side. I agree with what you're saying. Yeah. Agree. That's not to say that money can't be made on the trad pub side, but in a way you're kind of gambling. You have to win the lottery.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that have to happen in order for your book to even get published, and in order for that book to have lightning strike it. So, yeah. So that we're called the Alliance of Independent Authors for a reason. you probably can tell where our sympathies lie.
There may be some biases, and they're not subconscious.
Yeah, exactly. Well, somebody's going to start an organization called the Alliance of Traditional Authors at some point, and they'll probably give better advice on trad pub. Okay. Next question is from Katie. This is an interesting question. Okay, so this one might be a bit long, but I got my book translated into Chinese. It's a novel. The English edition is published by the Book Guild in the UK. I would like to self-publish the Chinese edition in Hong Kong and sell it online. I am applying for an ISBN in Hong Kong using the imprint of my business name as publisher. I was told I could use Book Vault once I have the ISBN. I am not sure of the entire process of how this works or if Book Vault is even the best option. What should I be thinking about?
So I don't know where Book Vault ships to in terms of all of their shipping locations. They have a pretty vast set of countries. The only thing that I do know is that Publish Drive do have some penetration in Asia and China in particular. So it might be worth reaching out to Kinga at Publish Drive. Am I saying those things right? It is Publish Drive, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe Publish Drive does.
Kinga
have
Gentetics or Jen, can't remember her surname, something like that.
Yeah.
And I would reach out to them and ask that question, because they have much, much more knowledge and much more penetration in that market than we do. That is, is your translator also going to translate some marketing stuff for you, some marketing copy? Because I don't know how you reach that audience unless you can speak the language. But yeah, I would definitely look at Publish Drive, as I believe they do. And I think they even have some print things in there now, although I wouldn't want to, don't quote me on that, but what do you think?
No, I think you're right. I think you're correct. I do remember seeing the Chinese market, like when I published my books on Publish Drive. I think you're right about that. I would, another thing I would do in addition to that is go to our member forum or go to some other author forums and just see if you can find somebody that has a presence in the Chinese market, and just kind of see what they're doing. That's a different market compared to other places where we typically sell our books. And so there are certain things you can do, certain things you can't do. And I don't even begin to know the first thing about the market, other than that it is a very unique market. So see if you can find other authors that have success in China and figure out what they're doing. I feel like this is one of those where I know authors sometimes don't want to pick up the phone, but you really need to just have a phone call with somebody and just ask them, hey, what do I do here? How do I do this? Because I don't know that you're going to find, I mean, maybe there's a blog article out there that's got this information, or maybe ChatGPT can answer some questions for you. But I almost think you just need to talk to people. It seems like a very relationship driven market. Sounds horrendous.
Talking to people. Oh no, I'm out.
All right. Well, it's been great, everybody.
It's been great. It's been real, but I'll
see myself out for suggesting that piece of advice. But authors and phone calls don't mix, and authors and spreadsheets don't mix either. And I happen to like both of those things, and so that makes me a unique creature. Okay. And I think this will be our last question, Sacha. And that is from member Jane. And Jane says, I have a children's book that needs quality printing and distributing. Okay. So she's mentioned the name of a publisher, which I can't name. I'm not going to name the publisher. But apparently this publisher has a book printed. The publisher has a book printed in China. They can get it into Ingram Spark sales platform and do, marketing, pack and ship, billing. How do I know if this company is legit or not? How do I know they're making too many promises? And she says that she has to pay for the printing of the books, and then the publisher charges a management fee. So some red flags, a few red flags.
There's some red flags there. You, if it's a publisher, you shouldn't be paying for anything. Correct. So look, there are hybrid models. There are companies that help support you through publishing your book, hand-holding, stuff like that. But if you are paying for the print run and they are also charging you a management fee, they are not a publisher. That is the incorrect word, the incorrect term. That is a very, very large red flag. Publishers pay to publish your book. That is what makes them a publisher. So the first thing that I would say is that is a red flag. I have concerns immediately. The second thing I didn't quite understand. They're having it printed in China, but then it's being distributed through Ingram Spark. That also doesn't seem to make sense because Ingram Spark print themselves. So I'm a little confused as to how that is happening. But it sounds like maybe there needs to be a conversation with this member, potentially looking at that in a little bit more detail.
I would agree, but I would say, Jane, the first thing I would do is go to our services directory. The company that you mentioned, I don't see them in our directory. So I would encourage you to reach out to our watchdog and let us know. I will pass the name along. But if you have specific questions, you may want to reach out to us in confidence and we can at least answer some of those questions for you. But I see a few red flags that I wouldn't, it just doesn't. Maybe again, we may not have the whole story, but just a few things. Having to pay out of pocket for publishing, kind of a unique market. You just want to make sure you evaluate that as much as possible. So definitely use your network as well. Find out if there are others that have used this particular service. And I think it's important that if it feels too good to be true, it probably is. But again, we could be missing some details, and I just want to make sure that we're sensitive to that as well. But be sure to reach out to us if you would like to discuss a little further, or if you would like our watchdog to take a look into this for you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, Sacha, we're at the bottom of another episode. It's crazy. We made it. And be sure to ask your questions, everybody, at allianceindependentauthors.org. Your questions are for members only, but anyone can listen to the show. But if you're a member, please submit your question by logging into your dashboard. And there is a link on the dashboard where you can ask your question. And we will do our very best to get to it on the show. We are actually kind of approaching, I would say, the bottom of the queue right now. So we're going to put out a call for more questions. So trust me, if you've got a question, we're going to put it in the queue and we're going to take a hard look at it and try to get it on the show. So thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you next month, and happy writing.
Bye.
You've been listening to Self-Publishing with ALLi with Michael Ronn and Sacha Black. Our weekly self-publishing advice podcast is produced by the Alliance of Independent Authors. Find more author advice, tips, and tools at our Self-Publishing Advice Center, selfpublishingadvice.org. And if you haven't already, we invite you to join our organization and become a self-publishing ally. You can do that at allianceindependentauthors.org.